podcast listeners. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. This is Raising 10, episode 13. Thank you for joining me. I always want to tell you that I really appreciate you listening to my podcast and to my shorts and on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you listening to my reels, although something changed in the algorithm, so I'm not getting as many views, but I'll get that fixed. So if you're not seeing them, look for them for me. I'd appreciate it. You can always contact me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com or on any of my social media platforms. So I have two podcasts that I'm dropping this week, and they're both regarding behavior for children and adults. Doesn't really change, I think, over the years. I hope it does, but a lot of times it doesn't change. And the first episode this one right here was inspired by, oddly enough, a TV show. And I've told you many times, I rarely watch TV, but for some reason, I don't know, maybe it was a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, it might have been raining or something, I'm not sure, but I was going through all these streaming channels that I pay for. And I saw an episode of Leave It to Beaver, like the first episode they ever did. Now, for you kids out there, you probably have no idea what that is. So ask your parents or your grandparents what Leave It to Beaver is. It was a sitcom that had two brothers and a mom and dad, and just all kinds of different antics that would go through. Well, the first episode, Beaver or Theodore is in a classroom. It comes into a classroom, and there's a new teacher there. It's relatively new, I guess. And she's giving Beaver an envelope to take home to his mom. And he's kind of concerned. He's like, "Well, what's in the envelope?" She says, "Never mind. Just make sure you get it home to your mom." So he gets out, gets the envelope, sticks it in his shirt, which was funny too. And he takes it outside of the classroom, and there's his friends are out there, and he's telling them that he got this envelope, and they pretty much told him, "Well, you're getting kicked out of school." I mean, no one, you would never get an envelope like that unless something bad was going to happen. And oddly enough, maybe 2 weeks before that, I was telling my wife that I used to get these envelopes pinned to my shirt when I was in elementary school. And it generally wasn't bad news, but it was once in a while, but they would just, so my parents would see that when I got home and they would take the pen out and take the note and read it. It could have been some school business or whatever. We obviously didn't have email or any way to communicate like that. So that's the way they did it back then. So now Beaver's mind starts to wander, right? I'm going to get kicked out of school. I'm going to get in trouble. My parents are going to beat me up. They always talk like they're going to get beat up, but of course, there's never any violence in the show. And so he tells Wally about it, and Wally says, "Well, we can fix this. We'll write a letter back to the teacher, not knowing what the letter says." And so he gets on a typewriter and starts typing. Again, if you don't know what that is, ask your grandparents or parents. Typewriter. And they write like a rebuttal letter to this. And so they ask Beaver at school, and he starts to tell this tale about how there was a fire and his dad's in the hospital and all those things. Just his imagination is just running wild. By the end of the show, Beaver has run away now, and they find him in a tree, and he doesn't want to come out of the tree. He says he's going to die before he comes out of the tree because he knows his parents are going to kill him. Well, what the letter was, the teacher was asking the mother if he could be in a play and play a particular character. It was not anything bad, but this is what happens when these kids, their imagination starts going wild. And of course, by the end of the movie, the end of the show, everybody's back at home and they're all happy and kind of they talk to Beaver a little bit and kind of explained what not to do. There's always a moral to the story. So I ran away one time. I was 4 or 5 years old, and I told my parents I was going to run away. So I got a stick, and I don't know what happened, but I got a bandana, and I tied a little, a knot in a little. I think I had some clothes in there or something, and told my mom I was going to run away. And by the time I got to the bottom of the driveway, she says, "Well, you know what? That's cool if you're going to run away, but you want to eat before you go, right? So you'll have something in your stomach." And I said, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea." So I went back in the house, and lo and behold, I ate dinner, went to bed, and everything was gone. This is some things being a kid. But I started thinking about my kids, and I'm sure I lied to my parents when I was a kid, especially a little kid. You don't want to get in trouble. You don't want a reaction from your parents. And my kids lied to me too, and I would catch them. And I I would get angry about them lying to me. But I started thinking about it. Are we making our kids lie? Is it our reaction that makes them omit things out of what they're supposed to telling us and when it comes to the truth? Are we disappointed when they lie to us? Are they getting this feeling of inadequacy because of the way we react? I'm not giving anybody a pass on lying. You should not be lying. I've done it. You've done it. Everybody's done it. They've lied to their parents. They've lied to friends. They've lied somewhere. We try to not do it often. I think our household was one that told the truth a little too much sometimes. If you asked a question, you might get an answer that you really don't want. I mean, my parents were very honest with us. And, it could be about, do you think I have a good voice? And my dad would be like, no, you can't sing, but you have fun doing it. So that's all right. I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. I don't know. But, kids lie because they're scanning your emotions, right? They want to see what your emotional temperature is. I have some notes over here. That's why I'm looking off to the left. And before they speak, they're asking themselves, is dad safe right now, right? Is he in a bad mood? Do I want to tell him something that happened at school or that happened, that I broke something or something like that? And I think we're always wondering what or how our parents are going to react. Is he going to blow up? Is my dad going to blow up? Do I really want to tell him the whole truth? Or will I get a reaction or a conversation? Are they going to sit down and go, okay, I understand. That's cool. Just let me know next time. And I've blown up at my kids for lying before. And I've also sat down, like they said, they broke something. I said, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. I have two more. It's not, did you clean it up? Did you cut yourself? Did you hurt yourself? We want to ask those questions too. But there's another note I have here. It says kids lie to protect the relationship. Like this one surprises people. If I tell the truth, will dad think less of me or mom think less of me? Is it going to be something that's really going to impact our relationship? And will we be able to have conversations in the future? Because kids never want to disappoint their parents. That was the worst thing. If my dad or mom would have said to me, "You disappointed me," that was word. I'd rather get hit than have my parents be disappointed in me. And still to this day, even though they're not even alive, I ask myself that question. I mean, are my parents proud of me? Did I do the right things? Did I do a good job as a parent or a worker or something like that? And a lot of this crosses over into employment too. And or maybe there's a celebration, that and you go to seek out your parents and you're going to tell them something. Is it going to ruin the moment? Is it going to, are they in a good mood right now? Do I want to say something that's going to put them in a bad mood? And you're weighing all these things when you're deciding if you're going to lie to your parents or not, or your worker, your boss or your spouse or whoever else. So lying is a really interesting things. They also lie because they're still learning how to handle big emotions, right? This courage, this self-awareness, vocabulary, emotional regulation. They're trying to, excuse me, they're trying to figure out. They're learning, and they're not sure how to play, how to word things or be tactful with stuff. And it's all about. I really think that disappointment thing's a big deal. The kids do not want to disappoint their parents. And I never want to say that to my kids. But I have if I felt like it was going to help, if I felt it was going to help them understand how big of what they did was a problem. Kids lie when the environment rewards perfection. Is the culture at home high pressure, high standards, low vulnerability? Is it something that uh, they don't want to change the culture? And if you have these high expectations for them and they don't meet those expectations, how are we handling that? Are we saying, you really disappointed me. All you had to do was this. And, even with my grandkids, I find that sometimes I'll ask my granddaughter something about schoolwork and well, whatever, she forgets it. She won't tell me the entire piece of it. She forgot something for school today that she has to have for tonight, and I have to take it to her. And she said to me, well, I don't think I really need it. So you don't have to worry about it. And I'm like, yeah, you really do need it. I contacted her aunt. Yes, she does need this, so I need to take it to her. And it bummed her out a little bit, right? And it was right before school. And I said, don't worry about it. I'll just take care of it. And hopefully she didn't stress about it anymore during the day. But kids definitely will do that. They don't want to put you out. They don't want to, cause havoc. They don't want their brothers or sisters. We had times when the kids were getting in trouble, and I had to line all five of them up, the five younger girls, and kind of use them against each other so I could find out who did whatever happened. I usually knew who did it, but I wanted them to all understand how, first of all, bad it was. There was a time when somebody was lighting matches in the bathroom at house. I mean, they could have started a fire and burnt the whole fucking house down. So I had to make it a point that this was a serious thing. And if you're not going to tell me the truth, I'll just punish everybody. And ended up working out that the person I knew did it, you know. And the funny thing is the girls didn't tell on the other person. She kind of ended up finally figuring out she needs to come clean. So her sisters didn't get in trouble. So it's things like that that would happen when we had the kids at home. But kids also lie because they see you lie. So let's say you're just telling a small lie to somebody and they say, do you like the color of my car? I don't know, whatever it is. And you say, yeah, I really like it. It, kind of accents, it's a nice car. It's a nice color in the car. And then you get home and you tell them that is the ugliest car I've ever seen. So you just lied to somebody and they're watching you do it and thinking, oh, so I can lie. It just has to be a small lie, right? Of course, you can be tactful and say to somebody, it's not my choice. I wouldn't have picked that color, but if you like it, I mean, it's your car. You got to drive it every day. I had this bad habit, and my mom used to kind of brag about it, that she'd say, don't ask Ed something you don't want to hear the answer to because he'll be completely honest with you and it's going to hurt your feelings probably. So be careful what you ask him. And people would ask me, you like this or that? I'm like, no, I can't stand it. Or, it could be a plethora of questions that they could ask me that I would tell them the truth. And I had to learn over the years, I had to be a little more tactful, especially in a work environment and with my kids. I had to be a little bit more careful how it was. Um, somebody called the house back in the old day and we had a landline and say, listen, tell them I'm not here. I don't want to talk to them. Tell them I'm not here. So now we're asking our kids to lie for us, tell them I'm not here. Answer the phone. If it's so and so, tell them I'm not here. Um, or we'll go later. Let's say we're going to have ice cream, and they say, well, yesterday I had a head cold all weekend, and I told Piper I would take her to play basketball a little bit, and we didn't go. And I kept looking for the basketball, which I could not find. But the whole point of that is I told her we'll go when I find the basketball. Well, I had a head cold. I didn't look that hard, and here I'm admitting that I kind of lied to her, and she was fine. But I should have just said, I can't, I just don't feel good. And we'll go another day. And I would have taken her then. And we talked about this, about culture last time on my last podcast, about how my kids would come and ask me questions if I had a couple drinks because they knew that I'd be a little bit more uh, uh, generous, I guess you would call it. But I made sure I stuck to that because I did say it, and my wife would have to remind me sometimes. I told a story about my dad and doing that. The other thing is this is one that I do a lot. So, how's everything going? Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Well, it's not always fine. And there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of stuff, but I never want to put that burden on my kids that they have to worry about it. It's not their business. They're kids. They just worry about, things that they can control, and they can't control what's going on in our life financially or anything else, job work, job hunting, advertising, marketing. I'd like everything to go the way I want it to the first time, right? Wouldn't we all love that? But it just doesn't happen. And what we'll say is, it's fine, don't worry about it. Kids also lie because they don't want to lose freedom, right? They want to keep playing, or they want to keep, they want to avoid chores, or they want independence. And they figure if they tell us the truth, maybe I'm going to restrict them for the weekend or for a night, or tell them, look, you can't go do that. I very rarely did that. I don't even remember a time when I did that, because if they committed to their friend to be somewhere, they needed to be there. If they told them they were going to, and they were counting on being there, or let's say this is a good one. Let's say you're going to go to a birthday party and they're paying for your meal, and then you decide I don't want to go. Well, you need to go because the parents are paying for the meal. And this is those little lies, right, that we tell. that we don't think had that much effect. But I think they pile up, and then people start getting, well, they won't matter. It won't matter if I tell them this or tell them that. And like I said, we always do it. We are always doing it. Do I look good in this dress? Do you like this dress? Do you like this suit? Do you like this tie? It's things like that where we're trying to be nice, but we could be tactful and be honest. And I don't think, kids don't learn that. Like I said, I used to blow up. I did not like when the kids lied to me. I'd been lied to by employers, by, you know, uh, partners, been lied to about a lot of stuff, and I don't want to be lied to anymore. Just tell me the truth. If you can't, if the truth's that bad, then I don't know. You just got to tell me. We'll just deal with it. And so, this is a big deal when you're raising kids. For those of you that had kids now or you raised kids already, this happened to all of us. And we had to be, we had to we had to have these conversations with our kids sometimes that lessens the punishment or whatever. Look, at my kids told me some things I never wanted to hear. And but I'm glad they opened up to me and they felt confident enough that I wouldn't blow up at them. It took a while to get to that point, believe me. And when you have 8 children, it's multiplied times 8. So those things are going to come up. And then there's other kids that just never, some of my kids just never got into situations where they had to mislead the truth or lie to me. I mean, I don't know now looking back, they were probably so small at this point that they're not concerned about it. And listen, for you parents, when your kids turn 18, 20, 19, 20 years old, you're going to hear some stuff that you didn't know about. And it's funny now, but it wouldn't have been funny at the time if I would have found out. Because some of it was dangerous. Some of it could lead them into a bad situation. I had a friend of mine that used to steal his parents' car all the time, and we would go joyriding with him. And I look back at that going, oh my God, what was I thinking? Now, my parents never even thought to ask me about it. I didn't tell them about it. We used to sneak out of this guy's house at night and go hang out with some girls and we were doing innocent enough stuff, but we weren't supposed to be out that late. First of all, it was against the law. Second of all, parents didn't know we were out there. Neither did the girls' parents. So it could have been a whole shitstorm if my parents would have caught us doing that. But I can tell you this: when my friends spent the night at my house, we never snuck out because if my dad would have caught me, I would say, no, if you want to sneak out, leave. Don't come back. But I am not sneaking out. It's just my dad or mom catch me, it'll be hell to pay, and I'm not going to do that. So now so what did I just tell you? I did it when I was at their house, but when I was at my parents' house, I wouldn't do it. And I had some friends that were they weren't criminals, but they were on the edge all the time. But my parents treated them very well, and they never disappointed them. They would say, "No, you're right. I'm not going to burn your parents." And they're very polite. My parents talked to them in a good way, and we ended up having a lot of the kids' friends at our house on a regular basis for dinner, or lunch, or swimming pool, or whatever we were doing, because we didn't treat the kids. We didn't talk at them. We didn't yell at them. We just relaxed and let them have a good time. And we learned a lot about our kids' friends too, by the way, that their parents probably would have. I never went and told their parents unless it was something that would endanger them, and can't even think of something off the top of my head that would happen. So that's where the leadership as a father comes in and mother, and you could build a home with truth is where it's welcomed, it's rewarded, it's modeled, it's safe. You can sit down and have a conversation with your kids and make sure that they can tell you something and you're not going to explode. Some of the stuff my kids told me that I could have exploded over, I understood. I was a kid too. I remember. You get into situations with people and you're trying to protect them too. But I think we were pretty open in that we could have conversations about those things and I wouldn't get, angry. I'd let them know that I wasn't happy about it. But the difference between blowing up and saying, look, that was really not a smart thing to do. So let's, in the future, if something comes up like that, and I'll tell you a really good one right here, and this is probably happened to every parent that has adult children now. Let's say that they're in high school, they're 18, 17, 18, 19 years old or something, and they have some friends that party, right? So I was not a partier in high school. I just did not go out and do those things. I always had a job. I didn't drink. I didn't do any of those things, but some of my kids did. And we would tell them, look, if your friend's drinking, you call us and we'll come get you. Now, the next sentence was, you're not going to get in trouble for drinking. If you're honest with me and you say, look, I went out and I had some drinks with some guys or girls or whatever, and I didn't want to come home with them because they were drinking. That's a smart thing to do, right? And then they'd get a talk about, look, you can't drink. You're not old enough. It's not a good thing to be doing. And since I didn't have that experience as a teenager, I just didn't do it. Um, I'd have to be, relatively cool about it. Now, would I let them hang out with those friends again? Probably not. There were times when a couple of my kids had some stuff to drink and they had to pay for it physically. Made them sick to their stomach or whatever. I've told these stories before. And so it was kind of served them right that they would go out and do something dumb like that. So, but I will tell you that when I was 13, I smoked when I was 13 years old, 13, 14, 15. And back then, smoking, they had commercials on TV. My parents both smoked. I was in a household that has cigarettes lit all the time. And no excuse. I shouldn't have been smoking, but I did get caught by my parents, and they just said, don't, you shouldn't do that. I mean, because we didn't know about the dangers of cigarettes at that time, and how addictive they were and all those things. We didn't know all that. But I still shouldn't have been doing it. We could walk into a store when I was 14, 15 years old and buy a pack of cigarettes. They didn't even idea. If you had money, they took your money and give you cigarettes. And we used to get notes from our parents. Can you go give me some? And that really happened. You used to hear about Gen X talking about that. Us baby boomers, we got notes from our parents. Never alcohol, but definitely cigarettes. We could just go into a store with a note and they'd give me a carton of cigarettes from my parents. Or, like I said, I didn't even need a note. I could just walk in and buy a pack of cigarettes myself. Cigarettes were 50 cents a pack back then. They're $14 now. So you understand that, but it was still a lie. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, right? We gotta we gotta learn to communicate with our kids, or we're creating the lie. And I'm not being soft on my kids. They have a responsibility not to lie, but it's how we react. We could turn them into doing things that made them lie more. So when the truth becomes the culture, if you have a culture in your household where the truth can be spoken and there's no repercussions or anything from it, um, then the lying becomes unnecessary. They don't have to lie to you. They can tell you something and you're like, well, let's not do that again. Okay, and I got better at this when I had my grandkids. Let's not go down that road again. My grandson's brutally honest with me sometimes. I don't like it, but of course he's an adult now, but when he wasn't, I still kind of had to go, okay, well, this is why that's dumb to do, right? The smoking, the whatever it was. So we got to be careful, right? When we're when we're teaching our kids that it's okay to lie, like I said, if that's so and so on the phone, tell them I'm not here. We're telling them to lie for us, and then we tell them not to lie. So it's kind of a slippery slope. It's a double-edged sword. It's all those things. But I had some kids that lied a little bit more than others, and I said it could have been my reaction. It could have absolutely been the way I reacted towards that child, versus other children. And I had some kids that got into more shit than other kids. Some kids didn't really ever get into trouble. They were focused on more positive things. Some kind of went down that path and wanted to try out the water. So, and like I said, yeah, I would get pissed off, and my reaction probably told them to don't ever tell dad like anything like that again. So I don't know. I'm not. I mean, I guess I am blaming myself, and I'm telling you, parents, you should blame yourself if you're doing that too. Try to get that really open rapport with your kids. Now, that doesn't mean your kids can do anything they want and then just tell you about it and it's okay. That's horseshit. I don't buy that. That's millennial stuff. That's letting our kids get away with murder and not punishing them for it, or not making them do chores, or not making them do things. Now, my next podcast, which is coming out this week, I have a guest that talks about how your mind works, and how the title of his book is How You Can Hypnotize Your Kid to Be Good. Now, he's not physically hypnotizing your child, but he has a lot of really good information on how behavior and how you can um, get your kids to behave a certain way. And it's kind of coddling your kids a little bit, but there's also there's discipline there too. And discipline can be good and bad. It doesn't have to always be bad. It's discipline comes from the word disciple, to follow, right? So if you're acting correctly and giving them the tools to succeed, they can follow you and be successful. But you got to listen to this podcast. This one I'm doing right now is pretty short, and the next one is not really long either. But he has some really good information, and he's sending me the book. I hope I get the book before it drops. But I've done the podcast already, so that's going to drop later this week. So look, again, just a few things. Are we teaching our kids to lie? Are we opening the Pandora's box, showing them that certain lies are okay and certain lies aren't okay? Well, really, no lying is okay. We all do it. We've all done it. We're probably going to do it more in our lives. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying that sometimes you get into a situation you have to say something that's bending the truth, we'll call it. Still a lie. Anyway, I appreciate you listening to my podcast. A lot more episodes coming up. There's so many more things to talk about. You young kids, go find Leave It to Beaver and watch it. It's a good, wholesome show. And if you don't know what it is, ask your grandparents or your parents, and they'll tell you what it is. So remember, you can get a hold of me at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. You can contact me on my social media platforms, or you can go to my website, which is edfranklinnolimits, all one word.com, and check it out. I got some new things on there. I'll probably get a blog out this week too on there that we can you guys can check it out and read. Anyway, listen, I appreciate you listening. I'm dropping this podcast on a Tuesday, which is February 3rd, and the next podcast later in the week. So have a great week. Stay warm, and we'll talk to you all soon.